I don't even know why I thought to do this. I said, I'm going to take 80 milligrams instead of the normal 40. Maybe it'll give me a little more energy. And man, did it make me strong. And it made me too strong is what it did. And so I was able to knock out, 585 for 6 reps, but I almost tore my quad. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey, this is the Game Triple H from the WWE. You're watching RxMuscle.com, the truth in bodybuilding.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Glad you can join us and glad you were able to join us this past weekend for our coverage of the 2023 Arnold Classic. We were, for many of us, we were, just constant interactions with all of you on our, DMs and just immediate feedback, things that you liked, things you didn't like, things that you wanted to see. So again, like all the live show coverages for the big shows, it's always cool to see, what it is that the fans want, what it is that they're enjoying, and just to receive that constant feedback, that constant interaction is really one of the coolest parts of this past weekend, these kind of experiences. So again, thank you for all who are actively participating in our coverage of the Arnold Classic. So now bringing Dave Palumbo. Dave, let's just get a general thought from you. Very eventful weekend, and quite possibly one of the more competitive shows featuring a world-class lineup that we have seen in quite some time.
We love to see a good competition. I mean, come on. I mean, it's first and foremost, we're all fans of the sport, whether we competed or we didn't compete, whether we're the press or we're not the press. I'm a fan first, so I want to see a good show. I don't want to see a blowout. I don't want to see something like bad talent. Guys brought it. It was new talent. We knew that Samson and Andrew Jack were going to be guys to watch out for. I don't know if anyone anticipated that they would be, top 3 guys, or that Samson would ever win the show, but that possibility was there, and that's what made the show exciting. Nick Walker always delivers his best. I'm sure he was very upset that he didn't win, but you know what? Those top 3 guys all went home with a lot of money. And that's good for the sport. That's good for the bodybuilders. And it's going to make more people say, hey, you know what? We better get in on this show next year, because that's a lot of cash that we could have gone home with. And so I think Arnold's going to see an improvement in the lineups every single year now, because there is more at stake. There is more to win. And these are prizes, Sid, that people can go buy houses with. They could invest in their future with these things, these paychecks. And I think that that's something that you can't overlook. And because of that, we had a great lineup. And the good thing that I liked is that there wasn't a million people in the lineup. You had 10 guys, I think, in the open. There were 7 classic guys. You were actually able to analyze the show, break it down. They were able to do a lot of call outs, and we were able to really, talk about every competitor, because there wasn't 35 guys in the lineup. And that made it much more palatable to watch and to critique, quite frankly.
No, it's a great point. And again, we have to give props to Arnold. We've always talked about the decisions that he's made for this show, as a bodybuilder himself. But again, it's one thing to have a passion for this show. It's one thing to, show support for the show. It's another thing then to put his own investment, put his own money. And we've seen all the improvements, and we've seen, obviously, that additional $100,000 and how that elevated the lineup. And again, with a constricted lineup, we saw just quality 1 through 10 in this lineup. Everyone brought it. It's really one of the first shows, Dave, and I think you can agree with this, really one of the first shows in which, much of the conversation was not about guys coming in off. Everyone 1 through 10 seemingly brought it in their own way. Highly entertaining. All the divisions across. And I mean, again, look, Chris Aceto made it to the point that he would love to see the 212 come back. Obviously there were those that, want to see Figure come back, see all the divisions come back. But, I just like the format, split up over 2 nights. It was nice and tidy. I think the shows were over by like 10 o'clock. So, from a fan perspective, from just what it is that we do, it was all just very neat and tidy. So again, props to the Arnold organizers, the committee, everything ran very smoothly.
Yeah, I think it's good that they didn't have every division, and that's okay. The problem was when they got rid of some of the divisions, Sid, it was the reason why they got rid of them.
Yeah.
They tried to make it seem like the athletes weren't interested in competing. That's not the reason. You should just say, look, we have a show. We don't want to make the show overwhelming where people watch it and say, you know what, I can't sit here through the whole show. It's too long. They did it for a reason, because I use the term palatable, able to be taken. In other words, it has a nicer taste when you can go and enjoy the show and not say, oh my God, when is this thing going to be over already? We didn't get that this year. And I think that's why the analysis on our part was better. I think that's why things ended at a reasonable time. And I don't think people had what I call battle fatigue from sitting in the audience for 12 hours. And that's a good thing. So that's a good thing. And I love the fact that Arnold got into the booth during the live stream and really gave it some life and some energy, because they were doing, Fouad and Dennis did a good job, but it was just kind of straight commentary. Arnold gets in there. Now all of a sudden you have one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time and the biggest icon in our sport critiquing the athletes. I mean, who doesn't want to see that? That to me was must see TV.
And the best part of it is he's always real. Like, he's very real about it. He's not going to sugarcoat.
He watches bodybuilding. Yeah. He knows what he's looking at. He's not commenting on athletes he doesn't know who they are. He knows who these athletes are.
So again, we appreciate all of you who are watching throughout the course of this weekend, and for all of your support and all of your feedback during the course of Arnold Classic weekend. Let's go to the questions. The first 2 questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, you've told the story of what the strongest pre-workout oral you ever used. You took 2 capsules instead of 1 and almost tore your quad. What compound was that, and is it comparable to anything out there today?
People have a better memory about things than I do, but I told the story. It wasn't a pre-workout. It was I was in the gym. This was in the 90s, and I was feeling a little tired, and I had a squat. I knew we used to squat at night, and I knew that all the guys that lifted were really strong, and I wanted to make sure I held my own. And I had just gotten up to like lifting, 6 plates on each side of the squat rack, which is what, 585, I guess. So at the time, we had gotten bottles of Andriol, or it was also known as Androxin, or testosterone undecanoate is the chemical name of it. Ironically, they sell it now as an injectable called Nebido. Nebido, if you take a shot of Nebido, it lasts in your system for 9 weeks. It's a long-acting ester. But for some reason, when you esterify it and you orally take the stuff, which is what Andriol was, it only lasts like 2 to 3 hours in your body, but it hits you instantly, and it doesn't aromatize. So it's testosterone, oral testosterone that doesn't aromatize, meaning it doesn't convert to estrogen because it's not around long enough to do that. And it poses no liver toxicity. It doesn't even go through the liver. The liver doesn't process it. So it seems like the perfect anabolic on paper. The problem is that it doesn't last in your system. So you get these ups and downs. So I said, you know what? I don't even know why I thought to do this. I said, I'm going to take 80 milligrams instead of the normal 40. Maybe it'll give me a little more energy. And man, did it make me strong. And it made me too strong is what it did. And so I was able to knock out, 85 for 6 reps, but I almost tore my quad because, when your body tells you you're not strong enough to do something, the stupidest thing to do, which is what I did, was to take something to make you be able to do it anyway, because the muscles are giving you they're telling you something. They're saying, we're not ready to do this weight right now. Lay off, go a little lighter today. But I didn't listen to my body. It was the only time I never did. And like I said, luckily I felt my quads start to separate, and I stopped. And a lot of times you'll get muscle separations, and they kind of they'll heal themselves up. You don't want it to completely separate where it disconnects. But yes, I tell that story just for reasons that I know a lot of guys, they may not be using andriol, but they might be taking like a pre-workout or jacking themselves up on like a lot of caffeine. And yeah, you'll get stronger doing that, but you can get hurt doing that too. So never do something that enables your body to lift something that it really can't handle, because that becomes dangerous.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. If already taking your Omegalyze as directed, should one still be concerned with the fatty acid profile of certain foods? I love tilapia. It has more protein than cod. Okay, in moderation. Same. And I guess he takes a bit of a different turn on this one. Same with farm-raised salmon. Okay, in moderation. Does farm-raised mean all the omega-3s are canceled out?
Yeah, when you have farm-raised fish, it's kind of like farm-raised, cattle. They're giving the animal foods it shouldn't be eating, like corn. It doesn't quite cancel out all the omega-3 fats. Now, you got to talk when we talk about like fish like salmon and tilapia and cod and whitefishes. They don't really have a lot of fat in them anyway. So the fatty fishes like salmon, swordfish, Chilean sea bass, those have a lot of fat in it. So those fish you really want to try to get wild caught if you can. Now, that doesn't mean if you're in a restaurant and they're serving you farm raised Atlantic salmon, I mean, you can have it. It still has good health benefits to it. It's not going to have the quantity of omega-3 fats. Now, if you're taking a product like my Omegalyze essential fatty acid, you're kind of covering your bases. And that's why I like taking an essential fatty acid replacement or supplement, because at least if you don't get it in your diet, at least you still have the right essential fats coming into your body for the day. But it's always a good idea if you're eating 6 times a day to try to get some additional omega-3s through the diet. That's why I like to use omega-3 eggs from the supermarket. I usually use the Egglands. They have a bunch of brands that have omega-3s in them because they feed the chickens flaxseed instead of corn. Grass-fed beef has a lot of omega-3s. Wild-caught salmon has omega-3s. And you don't have to have that every single day. But if you have an option, that where you can do that, like I went to a steak restaurant once and everyone's like, don't get the grass-fed. It doesn't taste as good. I said, yeah, but it doesn't taste that much different. And I'd rather have the health benefits of that. And so I choose, when I have the ability, to do wild-caught rather than farm-raised, but that doesn't mean if someone cooked me dinner and there was a piece of tilapia there, I wouldn't eat it. I absolutely would, because I eat chicken, and chicken is fed corn, and so, choose your battles. Don't be a neurotic, where you never eat, something that you think is not the best quality. As long as you're getting good quality protein in and you're getting the right amount of macros in terms of fats and carbs, you're covered. From a health perspective, if you can try to choose and you have a choice or an option to choose between wild caught and farm raised, I always choose wild caught, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't eat the food. These questions also sit from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. $29 a month. You can download it from your iTunes store or your Android store. You get Dave Palumbo as your coach in your pocket. You can ask me as many questions as you want on the app. I answer them in an open forum so everyone sees everyone's questions and answers. I do a Q&A video like I do for Ask Dave, exclusively for the app every single week. We put up a workout of the week every single week, and all my writings and videos are in one place. It's like a library of Dave Palumbo stuff. Great gift to get for people. It's great if you're looking to educate yourself and continue your education. So check that out.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us on Instagram, the handle is official_RxMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time here on YouTube, we welcome you. We ask that you subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our show segments, updates. Obviously, still a lot to unbox from this past weekend's Arnold Classic. And then, of course, everything else that it is that we do throughout the course of the year, leading into the Olympia, which is all the way in November. Subscribe below, hit the notification bell. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. And as always, we appreciate your support. A Behemoth, we do get a lot of questions, obviously, about your career, what would have been if you turned pro, and, where you could have placed at this show, at that show. Well, in his question is specific to this past Olympia, and I guess you can also apply it to this past Arnold Classic.
Mhm.
If a bodybuilder, which in his words says not the best structure, both mass and conditioning, like a Nick Walker, can place third at the Olympia, and then obviously second at the past Arnold Classic, could Dave Palumbo have placed third at the 2022 Olympia?
I will go on record and self-deprivate myself and say, no, I would not place third. I don't think I'm as good as Nick Walker. I don't think I was even close to as good as Nick Walker. I wish I was. I had different gifts and stuff like that, but no, Nick is in another class. He was much better than me. You know, I was what was unique, I think, about me, Sid, when I competed was back in those days, there were no amateurs as big or as hard as I was. So I had a unique little niche for myself. There were no 300-pound amateurs. Matter of fact, the only pros that were 300 pounds were like Dorian, and maybe Nasser, you know, at that time. He had just come around. Even Dillette wasn't getting up to 300 pounds in the offseason, even though he looked like he was 300 pounds. So I just had I walked around when I would go to shows, people would blow their mind because I was ripped at like 320, you know, and so it was impressive, you know, because there weren't a lot of people. There was almost no one, you know. Kovacs was the biggest freak aside from that, and he was very tall. So, and he didn't walk around ripped at that weight, you know. He was impressive because of his size. So it was like the land of dinosaurs, but there were only a few T-Rexes around at that point, and so that was my niche. If I looked the way I did then, probably in today's climate, I would just be another guy, you know. Oh, Dave is shredded. Yeah, we love to see how freaky he is in the gym and the lifts he does, but I don't think I would have been as impressive. Would I have turned pro more easily today than I would have done in the 90s and early 2000s? Yes, because there's more opportunities to turn pro between masters, and even at nationals they give top 2 pro cards. So I would have been a pro, but wouldn't have meant anything. I don't think I would have ever won a pro show or anything like that. I don't think I was that good, and I had injuries too with my shoulders. So I think I came around at the right time. I found my niche for myself, and that's what I tell you guys out there too. I said, find a niche for yourself. Find out what makes you unique. What skill set do you have that you can utilize and help you to make money? You have a good personality. Social media is going to be great to you. You're going to make a lot of money from social media. If you don't like to go behind a camera, maybe you like to train people, make yourself an authority on training. Maybe you're a supplement guy and you like to educate people on supplements, review supplements. Find a niche for yourself that makes you unique and that something that you like doing so that you'll do it a lot and be good at it. And I promise you'll find a way to make money for yourself. I probably would have had, I can't even imagine what I would have done with my own YouTube channel had I been training and stuff like that. I would have loved it. I probably would have been a complete neurotic with putting up content. But you really can make your own business nowadays. And you just have to find what makes you unique. If you're not going to be a mass monster because that's just something that your body's not capable of doing, then go in a different direction. Be a shape guy. Be an ab guy. I know guys that make money on just having great abs. I mean, you have to find what works for you. To answer the question, I would never beat Nick Walker. I'll go on record and say that.
Let's go to Jonathan Rouge. When you reconstitute Serostim with 1 ml bacteriostatic water and want to use 3 IU, where do you pull the plunger back where do you pull it back on an insulin syringe? Is it the third mark of the insulin syringe before you get to the number 1, or is it back to the number 3 on the insulin syringe? Or am I completely off base altogether? Clarification on the correct way would be greatly appreciated.
He's talking about Serostim and how many IUs was it?
3 IU.
He wants to take 3
1
IUs.
ml of bacteriostatic water.
Well, I love people give me these math equations. Like I'm out of school and I have to do math for people because they can't dilute stuff. And I got doctors I work with that can't do the math either. Most Serostim bottles are 6 milligrams. Okay, 1 milligram of GH is equal to 3 IUs of GH. So we're talking weight now. So if a bottle has 6 milligrams of powder, that's 6 times 3, that's 18 IUs of GH in that bottle. Now, assuming you add 1 ml of water to the bottle, that would mean that every 10 units on an insulin syringe or every 10th of a cc is going to be the equivalent of 1.8 IUs of GH. Because remember, there's 18 in the bottle, divided by 10 is 1.8. If you do 20, on the insulin syringe, you're going to have 3.6 IUs. If you want to do, what does he want to do? 3 IUs a day? that what you said?
Yeah. Sorry, I had it on mute. Yeah, 3
you want to
IUs.
do 3 IUs a day, you're going to have to do a little less than 20 on an insulin syringe. It'll probably be about 17, 18. So you would go to, the insulin syringes are graded 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. If it's a 1cc, that goes up to 100, So you would go 10, 20, and then come back a little bit to just those 2 little lines down, and you take it down to about 17. If you want to just go 20 units on an insulin syringe, that would be 3.6 IUs you'd be taking of GH. And you can take it subcutaneously with the insulin syringe. You could take it intramuscularly. That's the easiest way to do it. And you can customize how much you want to take. If you only want to take 1.8 IUs, you do 10 units on the insulin syringe. Now, if you put 2 mLs of water instead of 1 ml, which most people don't do because it's a small bottle, you would have to take double to get the same amount. It's just you're diluting it more. It doesn't matter. No matter how much water you add to that bottle will only have 18 IUs of GH. There's your math. Math 101. Let's get the algebra wizard, Mike Zeltzer, on. He can explain that a little better than I can, probably.
There you go. Hitesh Balusu. So I don't think this is much of a homework assignment, maybe more of a general guideline. Do you adjust calories only if you weight loss stop? Again, this might be a Google Translate.
Yeah.
If you're losing weight, should I continue consuming some calories that I was consuming before at a higher weight till plateau hits, or should I adjust calories as per new weigh-ins?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the question is, but I'm assuming that he's saying if you're losing weight too fast, is that what the question was?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're losing weight too fast and you have to bump up your food, I mean, you have to decide: are you eating enough protein? Assuming let's say you're a 200-pound man and you're eating 300 grams of protein, I would say that you're probably eating enough. That's 1.5 grams per pound. So I wouldn't increase protein. Are you eating enough fat? Assuming you're getting, half your body weight in fat at least, I would say, okay, the fat's probably good. So, and if you look flat and you're losing weight too fast, you're probably just not eating enough carbohydrates. So I would bump up the carbohydrates, 50 to 100 grams maybe for a couple of days. See how your body does on that. If you now fill up and then you start gaining weight and you're not losing anymore, you might have to bring it back a little bit. So I play with the macros, not calories specifically, because calories don't mean anything. It's macronutrients. I play with those according to what I see in a person. If a person's losing weight, but they look kind of full, then I'm thinking maybe I'm not feeding them enough protein. Maybe they need more protein because maybe I was a little on the low side because I was worried that they wouldn't lose weight. So in that case, I might just bump their protein up and that might solve the problem. But if they are low carb and they're losing a little too quickly and they're depleted, that would tell me that their glycogen stores are very, very over depleted. And maybe their bodies are starting to dig into muscle. We don't want that. So we're going to increase carbs. That's what you need a coach for. A coach will be able to make the call depending on what the person looks like and what diet they're following, what macronutrient they need to increase. Sometimes I'll just throw a cheat meal in there. I said, go get a burger and fries, and let's see what you look like tomorrow. And a lot of times that'll slow down, slow things down a little bit and solve the problem. So you got to just troubleshoot.
I'm not sure what the context is behind this question. I'm not sure if there was something recent that came out regarding this or what basis of knowledge you may have, but questions from Ray Ryan. Thoughts on Nasser El Sonbaty'S cycles?
Yeah. It's funny. I was saying on Heavy Muscle Radio the other day, I was watching the Arnold live stream, and they did a little tribute to Nasser and Cedric McMillan, who was no longer with us.
Right.
And who else did I forget who else they did? What's his name?
Lorimer.
Yeah, Jim Lorimer, right.
Jim Lorimer, yeah.
And which was very nice. And I noticed that Nasser died on March 20th, 10 years ago today, or whatever, 10 years ago, 2013, I guess it was.
Yep.
And then I said to myself, wow, I'm getting surgery on March 20th. It's the 10-year anniversary of Nasser's death. I said, so I was all like, it was bothering me because, look, as much as Nasser and I kind of like broke each other's balls, I actually liked the guy, so it was an interesting coincidence. And then today I got a call from my doctor's office. My doctor decided to extend his vacation. So now my surgery is March 22nd now. They moved it up 2 days, which made me feel a lot better than it was on the anniversary of Nasser's passing. So, but to talk about his cycles, I don't really know what Nasser took or didn't take. I know what he told me, but that doesn't mean that it was true or not. So I don't think that Nasser went crazy because I don't think anyone in the 90s were taking excessive dosages, especially compared to what guys take today. I don't think Nasser was taking more than what the guys today take, for sure. I think probably Nasser's problem, and if you ever were around him, he was always having trouble breathing because I think he walked around very heavy, and I suspect he probably had high blood pressure and never took it. He probably didn't want to take any medication for it. He probably never even checked it. A lot of guys back in the 90s, we just didn't think about that stuff. No one worried about that stuff because, you don't really feel high blood pressure, but that's why they call it the silent killer. And that's probably what destroyed his kidneys because, Nasser had kidney failure, which was one of the causes of his death. So I think that was his downfall, the high blood pressure. And I don't think it was caused by the dosages he took. I think it was just caused by the size he was. He probably should have been on blood pressure meds. And if he was, he'd probably be alive today. And I'm sure he would be the first person to admit that was probably something he was negligent on. But a lot of people were. The good thing about, that saved me was that I never had a lot of body fat on my body. So even when I was heavy, I wasn't carrying around non-functional weight, which is usually what can raise blood pressure. My blood pressure never really went up until I kind of got toward the end of my career, believe it or not. And I think it was more age related than it was anything else, because as we get older and we hit those mid 30s, what happens is the elasticity of the blood vessel walls becomes diminished and they can get stiffer. And so they don't dilate as easily. And so what happens is we start running higher blood pressures. And if you have a family history of this happening, you're going to inherit it from your parents. And so I noticed when I hit my about 33, 34, all of a sudden I started noticing when I would go to the doctor, my blood pressure was a lot higher than I would have liked it to be. It wasn't crazy high. It was probably 135, 140 over 89, 88, which is, borderline high blood pressure. So I said, look, you know what? I don't want to lose my kidney. So I went on a blood pressure med because I'm a neurotic. And, that probably saved me because I knew that was something that and I didn't want to go on it, but I'm so worried about my health all the time that I'm going to be the cause of doing permanent damage to my body that I will, even if I'm not on board with having to take a certain medication, I'll do it anyway, just so I don't damage myself, and this way, at the end of the day, you can't avoid, things from happening. Look, you think I wanted to have an enlarged aorta? I don't think I caused it. I think I have a connective tissue disorder that I'm being tested for, and I'll find out one way or another. But I would like to think that I've done everything to minimize any damage to my body, especially after I stopped competing. When we were competing, look, we know we do damage, and so you have to come to grips with that. Did Nasser's dosages cause his death? I don't think so. Did it contribute to his weight, which might have contributed to his high blood pressure and his kidney damage? Absolutely. So the take-home message here, after the silly question, of course, about his dosages, is don't take your health for granted. If you're going to take gear and you're going to be big, make sure you monitor all your health markers to make sure that you're controlling the ones that you can control and lowering things that might be too high.
Soren Popa, and I'm glad he's asking this because, for all the training related questions that you've answered over the course of the years, I'm not sure how often warm-up gets addressed. Now, his question is specific to best warm-up movements before a hardcore squat session, but I'll take it a step further. Just, your compound movements, any, big, heavy movements that you're going to be doing. When you go into the gym, what warm-up movements did you undergo? Did you do any light cardio? Did you do any bands, stretching? What was your protocol for getting ready for a heavy workout?
Yeah. Legs was the only workout I really stretched prior to the workout. Every other body part I would kind of stretch during the workout, and I stretched my legs also during the workout. But before the workout, I would get on the floor and I would stretch. I would do hurdler stretches. I would do, all kinds of different, put one leg back. I put my legs like a split stretch. I would do everything to loosen up that pelvic girdle area, because I knew that if I was going to squat, I was going to use full range of motion. I needed to loosen those glute muscles up. I needed to loosen up the thigh muscles, the pelvic girdle muscles that are in there, the psoas muscles. And so I would stretch on the floor for about 10 minutes, just thinking about my workout. Then I would get up, and then literally, I always started with squats most of the time. Sometimes I would do some leg extensions, but usually I went to squats because I wanted to make sure I was able to lift as heavy as possible. And I would literally sometimes have to do 2 to 3, just, maybe 6 rep sets of like just 135 on the bar, 225, just to really get blood flow going, start breaking a small sweat, so that when I started getting to the heavier sets, my muscles were ready to go, because I did not want to tear anything. And I wanted to make sure I had full range of motion. A lot of times you get in the gym and you're really stiff. Oh, you know what? I have a rough night's sleep, or my back's tight. If you don't have full flexibility of that whole pelvic girdle and back musculature, you're never going to be able to do a full range of motion, and you're not going to get the most out of your workout. So that was important. I will say this. Overstretching is not good either, because for a while I was doing yoga classes toward the end of my career, and I would go from the yoga class, I'd go right to the gym. And I mean, yoga was like 90 minutes of stretching. It was insane how flexible I got doing those classes. But I would go to the gym and I actually felt like I almost would injure myself in the gym, because I was too flexible. I had too stretched out almost. And that's not necessarily a good thing either. So don't overdo it, is what I'm saying. Some guys like to pedal a bike for 10 minutes, break a sweat, and then stretch. You can do that too. I didn't, in my career, need to do that. I felt like just sitting on the floor and doing stretches were enough. And then obviously doing a couple warm-up sets before I got into my working sets, worked for me. But the bottom line is that flexibility and getting some blood into those muscles while you're training lightly is a good idea before you go to the heavy sets.
So we got a similar question a couple of weeks ago regarding your career in terms of your training regimen heading into a show. This question is from Alexander Rude. Coach, if you're on a cut, not prepping for a show just in general, 3 to 4 months or so, at what point would you sacrifice performance in the gym on weight so you could still lose weight, still feel somewhat good? Should you train the same and the heaviest set, do what you can, or should you try a bit lighter and get more reps in?
Yeah, I never changed my training from off-season to pre-contest. I might have thrown in a few extra exercises, like maybe some stiff leg deadlifts I would do the last couple of weeks, that I wasn't doing before that. I might throw in some more like cable crossovers and stuff like that, just kind of squeezing stuff. But the core basics of my workout was still the same. When legs came up, I squatted. And I've squatted 585. Well, not probably like 500 at least for 6 reps at a week out from a show, for my last workout, because that just wasn't heavy weight for me. And so I never lightened the weights up purposely, because I felt that I would lose muscle if I did that, which is probably exactly what would happen. I always tell people, if something's not broken and it's working well, don't change it. But I will tell you this, I definitely lost strength getting lighter. Because if I'm 300 pounds in the off season and I'm competing at 265, 270, that's 30 pounds lighter. I'm going to be weaker. There's no doubt. And my endurance is going to be lower, especially since I like low carbs. So I wouldn't train as long. And I also, if my strength went down, if I couldn't bench press 405 for reps, I would do 315 for reps, because 315 would feel like 405 that last couple of weeks before a show. So as long as the weight, if I felt challenged by the weight, I wasn't worried that I was losing strength, because it didn't matter, because my body only knows what it feels. Okay. So if it feels heavy to my body, then I'm stimulating the muscle maximally. I always say it's a curse to be very strong. And I'll tell you why. I knew a kid, he was 180 pounds. The kid could bench press like 500 pounds. But in order to grow, he'd have to lift like 600 pounds. And it was too dangerous, for him to hurt himself. So it's better sometimes that you're not that strong, because you can lift less weight and get more benefits out of it. And but I never ever lightened weights purposely, ever.
Okay, yeah, I might need your help pronouncing this one. So it's from Chris Audit. Whenever I do a cycle, my blood work shows that my blood gets thick. Your opinion on using, correct me if I'm wrong, Nattokinase?
Yeah, Nattokinase, yeah.
Nattokinase, my bad. For thinning out blood during a cycle.
Yeah, I've read about Nattokinase for other issues, and in terms of digestion, breaking up collagen in the body. I just don't see enough research to suggest that it's going to prevent clotting. I got news for you. you take my Omegalyze formula, you're not going to clot. Your blood is not going to clot. You're not going to throw any clots. I promise you. Matter of fact, and I've told this story a million times, so I'm not going senile, but it's worth repeating because not everyone watches every show. When I had my shoulder replaced, the first one, I stopped all nutritional supplements 2 weeks before. And the reason I know to stop them 2 weeks before is because when I had my gynecomastia removed in 1991, no one knew anything about nutritional supplements and surgery. I was bleeding like they had so much trouble stopping the bleeding from after doing my gyno surgery. And afterwards, Dr. Blau, who I had just basically met, we didn't know each other then, that was how I met him, basically said to me, he goes, you take any nutritional supplements? I said, yeah, well, I take some fish oil and some vitamin E. And, at the time, everything was very generic. There weren't really a lot of good formulas. He's like, there's research. They would just realize this back in the early 90s. There's research to show that it inhibits clotting, these supplements. And he's like, in the future, if I ever do surgery and you ever go to surgery, make sure you stop all nutritional supplements at least 2 weeks out. And so I always remembered that, and I always done it. And so for the first shoulder, I did it. The second shoulder, for some reason, I don't know what happened. I forgot. And I stopped him at like 8 days out instead of 14 days out. And I figured, it's still good enough, right? It's a pretty long time. When I got the second shoulder done, I lost so much blood that I actually needed 2 units. They had to transfuse me with two pints of blood because I lost so much blood. Because he's like, I've never seen anyone bleed so much. He said, you just wouldn't clot. We were cauterizing things. And he's like, well, eventually we got it to stop. But then, you lost a lot of blood on the operating table. And so what that confirmed to me was that there is a significant anticoagulant effect of certain nutritional supplements, fish oil specifically, vitamin E, St. John's wort. They're even showing vitamin C now will inhibit clotting, which is good because if you're taking these supplements during the year when you're not getting surgeries and the chance of throwing a clot are going to be very low, which is nice, because a lot of people do, die of clots, unfortunately, and so these supplements are natural. They have no side effects like some of these anticoagulant drugs that they have out there on the market. So this is a natural way to not have clots. And you know what? Just because you have high red blood cells in your body, because you're taking a little gear or you're taking HRT, doesn't mean you're going to throw a clot. If you have too many platelets, which is the clotting part of the blood, that's dangerous because now you might throw clots. But if you have high red blood cells, but your platelets are normal, and a lot of bodybuilders have lower platelet numbers. I don't know why, but I just seen a lot of blood work, and that's the case. You certainly are not going to throw a clot in that situation. So taking a product like Omegalyze, taking, a V-mineralized product that has your vitamin C and E and all that stuff in there, very unlikely that you're going to notice that you're going to ever throw a clot in your body.
Take one more question. Bilal Hamide, will taking magnesium help my quad and calf cramps? I tried taking taurine, but that didn't really help.
Yeah, John, the famous taurine. Taurine doesn't inhibit cramping, by the way, so don't waste your money on that. But magnesium can help if you're magnesium deficient, okay? Most cramps that I have found throughout my career and people that I've worked with were due to low sodium, okay? And that you could be eating salt and you still might not have enough because if you're peeing it out, especially on a diet, when you're on a diet with low carbs, you're going to pee a lot, okay? Because your body's not, carbs make you hold water and sodium, okay? When you eat low carbs, you don't hold any water or sodium. So you might be peeing out too much, especially since you're working out, you're sweating in addition to that. So you really need to salt your foods when you're dieting, especially on a low carb diet. You should do it anyway, even on a not on a low carb diet. I know a lot of powerlifters that actually will put salt into their pre-workout drinks just so that they make sure they have enough sodium in their body. Matter of fact, when we made Amino Evolved, which is our branch-chain essential amino acid product, we put electrolytes specifically in there, potassium and sodium, to prevent cramping and stuff like that, because a lot of people do notice that. So I would try sodium first, adding more salt to your foods. If that doesn't help, okay, then what you might want to try adding the magnesium. Usually that's not the solution, but it can't hurt because some people do take too much calcium, not enough magnesium, and that's why it's important when you take a vitamin, multivitamin, multimineral, that they be balanced. V-mineralized, my species nutrition product, is balanced with sodium and calcium because they have to be in the right ratios to each other. That's very important. And then if let's say you're taking clenbuterol for fat loss and you notice cramping in your lower body, that's not due to any electrolyte imbalance. It's just that the clenbuterol makes the muscle contract harder. And in that case, you can go buy some diet tonic water in the supermarket. They sell it. It's the diet tonic water has no carbs or no sugar in it, no calories. And you can drink 6 ounces of that a couple times a day, and that will stop the cramping because tonic water has a methylquinine in it, and methylquinine will inhibit cramping. So a lot of guys like to use that backstage or do it while they're using clenbuterol if they are noticing cramping that is causing them problems. But don't take the quinine until you rule out maybe you're not eating enough sodium, because the quinine will stop the cramping, but you might be sodium deficient, which will make you look flat. So always try to increase the salt intake first.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, we appreciate everything that you fans brought to us during the course of the weekend, this past weekend for the 2023 Arnold Classic. Reminder right now on the channel, all new episode of Heavy Muscle Radio with the X-Man Tony Freeman providing excellent insight. And of course, Chris Aceto giving his full recap of the weekend that was at the Arnold Classic. All new live episode of After Hours. And then of course, tomorrow, all new episode of Iron Rage with Lee Priest. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.